McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jocks 94.5, 800-239-9569. Want to continue taking all of your terrific telephone calls. Have enjoyed so far a lot of the areas you guys have taken us to. We have nothing planned, no guests, no nothing. We had Trent Dilfer in the first hour. Always really enjoy our visits with him. He does an amazing job. And just gives us such great perspective. So go back and check it out on the podcast, wherever you got your podcast. Did a little tip at the cap to the SEC. The SEC did a great job. They really did. They did an amazing job. And we kind of documented it in the first hour. But they really do put the fans first. And I just don't feel like that's... And I know people have said they don't. They don't. They did this. They did that. I think because of the 16 schools they've accumulated, it has created a really good, solid contingency of rivalries that have been both renewed and restored. And they've tried to do a great job creating competitive balance. And these annual opponents, man, 281 miles. The fact that it's the average across the board, the farthest anyone has to travel is Kentucky, Florida, and Oklahoma, Ole Miss. Like, golly, that's... Especially when you take into account there are several schools, both this week, last week, next week, what have you, that are traveling 3 time zones away to play a college football game. That's pretty awesome that the SEC has done what they've done. I certainly am proud to cover it, that's for sure, on a week-to-week basis. I'm also proud to be a big proponent of Bromberg's, who continue to deliver unbelievable value and experiences when you walk in the doors. If you got David Yurman jewelry that you love, here's something you don't want to miss. Bromberg's is hosting a David Yurman cleaning event on Monday and Tuesday, October 6th and 7th at their Summit store. Bring in your David Yurman jewelry to be professionally cleaned and polished, free of charge. And while you're there, you can check out the brand new fall and holiday designs. Maybe even find a new piece to add to your collection. So call Bromberg's at the Summit today to reserve your spot. Bromberg's been around for 190 years, so they'll take great care of you just like they've taken great care of me. I know you'll have a great experience when you shop at the very best. That's Bromberg's. All right, I want to continue on with your phone calls. 800-239-9569. I told you we can literally go anywhere. I'm talking anywhere. You want to talk about coaches on the hot seat? You want to talk about coaches getting fired? You want to talk about Bama, Georgia? You want to talk about Auburn A&M? You want to talk about Stephen Pearl? You want to talk about Oregon, Penn State? Promise you I'm dialed. Let's go. You want to talk about Florida State, Virginia? I'll tell you all you want to know about Florida State and Virginia this weekend. I'm very comfortable going in that direction. You want to talk Arkansas, Notre Dame? Beautiful. I'm here. 800-239-9569. You can also text into the show at 205-834-9450. All right, let's go to Lee in Cincinnati. He's up next. Lee, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Greg. And I have to tell you right now, at least one thing I can guarantee about this weekend is that the Florida Gators will not lose.
Can confirm. You guys are going to beat the pants off of Open. No doubt about it.
Yes, exactly. Thank God it's one guaranteed non-loss. But speaking of that, though, it's kind of obvious that Napier's not going to be around for very much longer. He's going to be gone. Probably wait a couple games so that way they keep the roster intact for the most part. But who is there, do you think? Have you heard any names or any idea of who they might be able to get to replace him?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just put it this way. It remains a remarkably attractive opportunity. Like, remarkably attractive. Florida has very deep pockets. Very deep. And they are in a remarkably talent-rich part of the country. And the funny thing about it is I feel like they've made good hires. The only thing that makes this job, quote, unattractive is the fact that they've run guys the second things look like they're going to be a little sour. For example, some firings are completely warranted, right? Like, totally get that. But sometimes you have a blip on the radar. Sometimes you have a slightly down year. Sometimes you have a roster that's maybe too young, and all of a sudden, the following year, it could be pretty good. I look at Auburn, for example. Like, you can ask Gene Chizik 1,000 times. He's one of the best guys ever, and I think a phenomenal football coach. Gene Chizik could have told anybody, hey, 2012 is going to be hard. It's going to be a hard year. Our roster's really young. We got a lot of pieces to figure out. Man, I tell you what, like 2013, we're going to be a lot better. We just gotta kind of take our lumps here in 12, and 13 will be fine. They run them, they bring in Malzahn, and next thing you know, they end up making a run. Was that Malzahn, or was that because the roster was a year away? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I'm sure it's a combination of both. But I look at Florida, they gassed McElroy, and he went to 2 SEC championship games. They gassed him the following year. They gas Mullen the first second that things start to turn a little sideways. And now they've given Napier a ton of time, and it hasn't materialized. So this one I get, right? But the last two I thought were a bit premature, personally speaking. That's what I thought.
I agree.
So, looking at this one, it's a remarkably attractive job. I do think that the next coach, and just with it being Florida, scoring points and having entertaining offense will always be of significance because of how it was done there in the 90s and how the fan base wants to consume winning football. You got to score. And they've now gone McElwain, Mullen, Napier, all offensive-minded coaches. Will they go to the well a fourth consecutive time if, in fact, this goes down like you assume it's going to? Probably. So, without putting other names out there, I mean, I would think that Lane Kiffin will get a good long look. I would think that a handful of others will get a good long look. And I think a lot of people will be very intrigued by the opportunity of going to a place that can pay top dollar, has no state income tax, and has a ton of talent right there in their own backyard. So, Lee, I don't know where it's going to go, but I think it's going to be a good spot for you guys and one that a lot of people will be clamoring for.
Well, do you think, though, that Lane would actually leave Ole Miss? That's one thing that I'm kind of hoping, but I don't know. He's got a pretty good gig there. He could stay there for life. He could write his own ticket with the way that he's coaching right now. Do you think he'd be willing to leave Ole Miss, though, to go to Florida?
I don't know. I mean, I think Lane Kiffin, I think Eli Drinkwitz, I think all those guys are in really good spots. You know what I mean? These guys are, it's not like they have terrible situations. Like, they have really, really good situations. So, I don't know. That's the ticket. I think that's the hard part is you are sitting there trying to go after coaches that are already happy. But I do think there is for example, John Calipari. I know it's basketball, a little different animal. Things had not gone as smoothly at Kentucky as Calipari would have liked. So he gets a new lease on life by going and getting another, resetting the clock, so to speak, and taking a job at Arkansas. The same thing with Buzz Williams, who, things were going okay and pretty good at A&M. Takes a job at Maryland, resets the clock. Is that something that could be happening at Florida, perhaps? I don't know. I really don't. I think there'll be a lot of suitors, though. A lot of people will want that job. A lot. And the second it goes down, depending on what happens, I think it's probably as attractive a job as there will be in this cycle, if you look at what could come open in other places. So, appreciate the call, Lee. I really don't know. I don't like speculating when a guy hasn't lost it yet, because I, for one, have called at a Florida Gator team this year. I've called a game. And while I was pretty underwhelmed with what I saw offensively, I think their defense is good enough to keep them in every game. And I'll be honest with you, if they beat Texas next week, it would not shock me. I mean, it just wouldn't. I think Texas is a good football team with a high ceiling, and maybe they found something in their game against Sam Houston last week. Maybe they'll find something even more in their week of prep where they can just worry about themselves. And you might very well get the best version of Texas next week. But it wouldn't shock me if they pulled it off. Just knowing how they play and knowing kind of what drives them. We'll continue with your phone calls. 800-239-9569. Auburn right now is actually introducing Steve Pearl, Stephen Pearl. I don't know why I said Steve. Sorry. So we will probably take a little listen there here in just a moment. Um, but man, what a great week of college football we have. We haven't really talked about it yet, by the way, since we're on the topic with Lee and coaches and hot seat and openings. And we talked about it a little while ago. Unless you know for sure the program is heading in the wrong direction, unless you know for sure that the guy is not the guy to take you to the next level, unless you know that with 100% certainty, I can never be on board with firing a coach right now. I just can't. I think it's a very hard thing from a financial standpoint to justify paying a guy not to coach your football team when that money can be spent on the roster and trying to improve the personnel that coach has at his disposal. So unless you know with 100% certainty, I think it's a dangerous game to gas a coach right now. But Oklahoma State did just fire Mike Gundy. And I actually agree with this one. You know what I mean? I think this is the right thing to do. I think it's the right time. If you look at how Oklahoma State has started this year, Oklahoma State has been blown out badly by Oregon. They just lost last week to Tulsa, and it was a remarkably unimpressive performance. Even if you look at it, like, golly, watching it last week was like, woof. Like, that game could have been sideways in a lot of ways in favor of Tulsa. And Tulsa kind of let them hang around. But they were the better team from start to finish. And they did lose their quarterback in week 1, and there were some challenges surrounding that, and that's a bummer. And maybe things would have been different if Haas Henye was still there and available at quarterback for the Pokes. But I don't know. But I think this Oklahoma State program is one that's kind of a fascinating evaluation in the modern era of college football. Because from the outside looking in, you would think they have unlimited resources. Now, T-Boone Pickens is no longer with us, but T-Boone Pickens has long been a tremendous advocate, and I don't know what his trust looks like or how he's set things up for the athletic department there at Oklahoma State for a long time. But Mike Gundy was outwardly talking about the amount of NIL money they had access to, and he said they had $7 million to pay their players over the last 3 years. 3 years, $7 million. And I've talked to Mike Gundy a couple times in the last couple years, and he said, all I do is try to raise money. That's all I do. I mean, I'm a politician. I'm fundraising 100% of the time. So I asked the question, and it's not so much about Oklahoma State, it's about other schools as well that kind of are in the similar boat. How much money is just naturally coming in, and how much money needs to actually be actively fundraised? Because I don't know the answer to that. Because if my job as a head coach is to win games, I can't be active on the trail to try to go generate interest and support financially for our program. So how attractive is an Oklahoma State? How attractive is a school where that's part of the job responsibility nowadays? I don't know. Because that to me is asking an awful lot. All right, going to take a quick break, reset. Continue on with your phone calls, 800-239-9569. Continue on with your tweets, texts, and things like that, because we have a lot of intriguing games coming up this weekend. We'll do it next on Mac and Cube. All righty, welcome in. Lot of exciting matchups this weekend, too. I want to quickly just kind of go outside the footprint for a moment and just dial into a couple games that I don't want to say they're flying under the radar. And they, whether you like it or not, they have an impact on your team. We will get to those in just a moment. Before we do, we want to get to some of your texts, which have been coming in on the text line. Damien, we have some good texts coming in.
Oh yeah,
how are things looking?
Yeah, we're talking about Cole's absence today, and somebody said Cole is going to have a student in the corner getting the pump.
Go over there, get you a pump. How do you guys, hey, Mr. Cubelic, how would you recommend preparing for a big game that you're calling on the SEC network? Well, I go over there and I get a pump. Go over there and get you some curls. Go over there and do some push-ups. Go over there and make sure you can intimidate the other team. They're not scared of you.
Using Auburn journalism, days over in Mississippi State journalism. Use a better reporter. That's all you need to know.
It's unbelievable. It really is. It's so good. I just love everything about that story and the fact that they thought that getting a little bicep pump is exactly what they needed to go out there and win the game on whatever Saturday it was that they were talking about.
Somebody else texted in and asked for analysis of the Mississippi State and Tennessee game. How real is Mississippi State?
I think Mississippi State's a handful. I think that's one of the games that's kind of flying under the radar. And it is – I'm not necessarily there yet to where I'm saying Mississippi State pulls the upset. Like, I'm not there yet. I think Tennessee is the better team. I think Tennessee will present problems for Mississippi State in the run game. If you watch the second half of that Arizona State game, they kind of just stayed committed to the run game. They kind of just stayed committed to trying to climb back into that game by handing it off and letting the offensive line go to work. And I do think that Arizona State run game is pretty sporty. So I think if I'm Tennessee, that's kind of how I attack it from get-go. Because I'm not 100%. I think Mississippi State is vastly improved defensively. I do. I think they are night and day better from where they were a year ago. But I don't know if they've seen a run game that is this capable just yet. So I think you're going to see a heavy dose. I mean, I'm talking a heavy dose of run game. And if they can stop it, they got a real shot. If they don't, they're going to have their hands full. But I think it's one that's flying under the radar in a lot of ways because of how improved Mississippi State is on that side of the ball.
Somebody else texts in and says, Greg McElroy, you are wrong about the Ryder Cup that being played in the fall because it is that big of an event and can compete against any other sport.
I don't disagree, but the numbers would not necessarily reflect your level of enthusiasm. We'll see. I mean, it's a massive event. I'm not suggesting it's not. I'm not suggesting that it's not enormous in Europe. I'm not suggesting it's not a worldwide audience. All those things are accurate. The fact that it's being played at Bethpage is amazing. Like, New York audience is going to be off the charts. It's going to be super, super entertaining. And frankly, like, I wish I could watch it. I really do. So maybe it's selfishly motivated. Maybe it's selfishly driven. But I just think the audience would be better if you played it Tuesday through Friday. It's not like people don't find a way to watch the March Madness games that tip off at 11 o'clock Central Time on Thursday. It's not like people are, and by the way, this is every other year, and it's every 4 years in the States. So if you played this on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and got out of the way for college football and the NFL, would the viewership be better? I think it might. if I go back and look at television ratings for the Ryder Cup, let me look that up real quick. Ryder Cup 2023. TV ratings, Ryder Cup 2023. Ryder Cup TV ratings 2 years ago. Coverage of the Ryder Cup. Jeez. This is even worse than I anticipated.
That's a good sound. Okay.
That is not good. Yikes. Okay, you ready?
Talk to us.
You're not going to like this. For those of you that are in favor of the Ryder Cup. Now, I am a golf fan. That's documented. I like the sport, especially when the top dogs are playing. I think the Ryder Cup is a highly entertaining. I just think the Ryder Cup's just highly entertaining in general. So, Ryder Cup from 2 years ago, coverage of the Ryder Cup averaged a 0.6 rating and 906,000 viewers across NBC and USA Network. NBC was at 1.21 million. USA Network was at 488,000. The final day, that's singles, average of 0.8 and 1.32 million on NBC. The lowest rated and least watched Sunday of the event since at least 1997, and is down 51% and 47% respectively since the last time it was contested in Europe 5 years ago. Now, if we want to go back to 2021, let's see what the Ryder Cup numbers were like in 2021. This is when it was stateside. The last time it was stateside. The final day of the Ryder Cup, this is Sunday, averaged 3.51 million viewers, marking the lowest rated and least watched Sunday of a U.S.-based Ryder Cup since at least 1997. Ratings fell 21% and viewership 18% since the last time the U.S. hosted the Ryder Cup in 2016. So, don't take my word for it. Take the numbers and the drastic declines. And honestly, guys, just so you know, pretty keenly aware of television ratings. It's my job to know what's going on in the television world. We did a game, and so far this year, if you'd like me to go through it, Auburn and Oklahoma last week, 6.12 million viewers. That's double just about what the Ryder Cup did on Sunday, on the final day, 4 years ago, the last time the event was stateside. Auburn and Oklahoma. Miami and Florida did 6.46 million. That was the highest rated game last week. You want to go back the week before that? And by the way, the matchups this weekend, far more comparable to week 3's matchups than week 4's. So remember, the Ryder Cup on Sunday, the final day, 3.51 million viewers. Just to have perspective, on Saturday, I don't even have that number because I can't find it, but Georgia, Tennessee did 12.58 million viewers on ABC 2 weeks ago. Florida LSU did 7.64 million viewers. Texas A&M Notre Dame did 6.2 million viewers. The Ryder Cup, reminder, 3.5. That's on the final day with singles. So if you think that the Ryder Cup is better off going up against LSU Ole Miss, Ohio State Washington, Oregon Penn State, Bama Georgia, Notre Dame at Arkansas, all the other great games that we have at our disposal this weekend. If you think Auburn, A&M, these games are going to rate 6, 7, 8, 10, 11 million viewers. USC at Illinois. I can keep going.
And that's not including Sunday. They'd be going up against Bucks and Eagles, followed by Ravens and Chiefs. Now, I know the Ravens and Chiefs aren't the greatest teams right now, but still, those are going to draw some massive. And that's Sunday. That's final day.
Mm-hmm. Like Titans and
That's
Texans.
the final day.
Okay,
Titans and Texans, man.
Okay, that's Scalper's not off on that one. They can Ryder Cup might have an advantage in that one. That may be the one
Slight.
game they outdraw. Yeah.
Correct. So that's all I'm saying. Like, if you look at the juggernaut that football has become in not just the Southeast, but all throughout the country, college football is enormous. NFL is the biggest thing on television. And the Ryder Cup is choosing to deliberately go up against those events. They're going to get smashed. Absolutely smashed. And they don't have to. You're telling me you put Scotty Scheffler against Rory McElroy and you make them tee off in singles on Friday at noon Eastern time, and they're done on the course at 5 Eastern time, or, I don't know, have them tee off at 2 Eastern time, and then you get a little bit of primetime action between Rory and Scotty in one-on-one? It'd be great for golf. Everyone would be watching. Everyone. But you know when they're not going to be watching? When Mahomes is playing Lamar. I'm just saying, man. I just think it's a missed opportunity. And that's coming from a golf fan. I like golf. I want it to grow. I want it to be big. I want it to be impactful. I want it to be consumable. I want it to be enormous. And the Ryder Cup's a great opportunity to do that. I just don't think it's very smart to have this on a weekend that has such tremendous inventory when it comes to football. I just think it's a missed opportunity. All right, we'll take a quick break. Come back. Mac and Cube. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 10:33 a.m. here in Hartford, Connecticut. Getting ready to catch a flight home here in just a little bit. 9:33 back home in Birmingham. Hope everybody's Wednesday is off to a terrific start. We have a great slate of games coming up this weekend, and I know we have a lot of people texting into the text line 205-934 or 834-9450. That's 205-834-9450. Where are we going, Damien?
Hastings texts in. He says, what's the outlook for Alabama if they lose against Georgia this weekend?
You know what's funny? Like, a lot of people have asked me that. And look, it's a tough game. Like, I mean, if you can steal one on the road in this league, it's like, man, big time. That's huge, right? But I look at it, and I actually was going through this yesterday. It's kind of interesting. I don't often go too far down the rabbit hole of what things look like moving forward and trying to predict this and what will the line be here. And, you know, because I think it's kind of hard to assess because the lines change and things adjust and all this other stuff. But if you look at the numbers for Alabama in the event in which they lose this game, which, by the way, it could happen. It's a toss-up. It's a hard game. There's no denying that. But if you look at the numbers for Alabama, it's kind of remarkable how things look pretty dang positive going into this game. For example, if you look at Alabama's win total right now, it's over 8.5. It's down from the 9.5 the season started. Of course, they're 2-1. They're a slight dog this weekend. They are probably a double-digit favorite against Vandy. Okay, I know they were last year too, but probably a double-digit favorite there against Vandy. They're a favorite on the road right now in a look-ahead line at Missouri. A slight favorite, but probably about a field goal there. 2.5, 3.5, thereabouts. Tough game there. They'll be probably a 6-point favorite on a look-ahead line against Tennessee, thereabouts at home. Right now, probably a double-digit or high single-digit favorite at South Carolina right now. At home against LSU, favorite about 3.5. These are all look-ahead lines now, so this is purely based on Vegas. Right now against Oklahoma, about a 3.5, 4.5 point favorite at home. Eastern Illinois, obviously not a thing. And then at Auburn, about a 6.5 point favorite. So guess what? Like, you steal one this week, then you're in really good shape. You lose this one this week, you just got to win your coin toss games. And at 9-3 team with a loss to Florida State, who's probably a playoff team or at least in the mix, a loss to a Georgia team, who's probably a playoff team, highly likely a playoff team, frankly. A loss, say, I don't know, at home against LSU, I mean, probably a playoff team. I think things are still very much on the table. But all things being said, I think a win this weekend would basically make up for the loss against Florida State, and then everything else continues to be right in front of you. Because it's hard to win on the road in this league, man. If you can steal a couple on the road, you'll be in really good shape. You lost your first one on the road, it happens. I know it wasn't in the league, but it happens. Now you get a chance to steal one back, one that maybe many people don't expect you to get. We'll see how it goes. But things look pretty good for Bama moving forward. Like, they'll be favored in every game from this point forward. Favorite doesn't always mean win. We know that. But they should be a favorite in every game after this one. So we'll see. 1.5 point dog, 2.5 point dog, 3 point dog, thereabouts in this game, kind of all over the place, and it's kind of been bouncing around these last few days. Damien, what else? What else we got?
Yeah, John texted in and says, is there plenty for Auburn to feel good about even after that loss to Oklahoma? And in October and November, could they make some serious noise down the stretch?
Yeah, I think Auburn actually, in a weird way, we don't really do a lot of like moral victories, right? Like, I don't like to do moral victories. Who likes doing moral victories? It's the worst. I really don't like them. But I'll say this. I actually think that Auburn, coming out of that one last week, I have more respect for what they can be defensively. I'm not sure anybody's going to push back on that. I think if you look at Auburn and their offense, I think they have a couple things to iron out. I think they need to be a little better in the run game. I think they need to be a little more decisive in the pass game. I think the amount of times that Jackson Arnold held it last week was a little concerning. I wish that he would have cut it loose a few times. That would be helpful. But this game will be a huge bounce back opportunity. Huge. But also, it's not really a game where you're sitting there thinking, like, this is one they absolutely have to have. Because what did we just say? You got to take care of your games at home. And after this one, they play all but 2 games at home. Right? They're at Vandy. They're at Arkansas. Both will be tough games, by the way. Both will be very tricky games. But you get Georgia at home, be a tough game. You get Missouri at home, will be a very tough game. You get Kentucky at home, you get Mercer at home, and then you get to host the Iron Bowl this year. So I think all is not necessarily lost with a loss this weekend, but winning it would be massive because it would allow you to lose one at home and still very much probably be in the mix. So I think it's a big one this weekend, and one that I think they can get. They're just going to have to play great defensively, and they got to run the football. If they can run the football, they'll be in a really good spot. If they struggle to run the football, it's going to be very tough sledding. Where else, Damian?
Somebody texts in and says, what's your take on all of the injuries during practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I absolutely hated seeing that yesterday. A guy that's, the longest tenured member of the team has to get, taken to the hospital in Birmingham. And it's just scary. I mean, I don't know the circumstances. I haven't seen the play. I haven't talked to anybody. But for those that are unaware, Jamarian Latham got hurt with a neck injury in practice yesterday. And according to Coach DeBoer in the statement, they had full feeling and motion, and is currently undergoing a thorough medical assessment to determine what the next steps will be like in his recovery. And of course, we all know that the top priority is to make sure that he has 100% health and well-being and can live a long and fulfilling life after football. I mean, that is all any of us care about. But very scary. And I will say this, a lot of people have questioned in the past the level of intensity at practice. Is it as physical as it once was? Is the practice as hard as it once was? And I think people have kind of looked at Kalen DeBoer's demeanor, and they've assumed because he doesn't throw his headset on the sideline and doesn't scream as often as Nick Saban did, and his, I guess, personality in the press conferences and other areas, like they assume that he's, quote, softer. I can just tell you this. I've been to a handful of practices coached by Kalen DeBoer, not just at Alabama, but also at Washington. And they practice hard now. I mean, it is a physical practice. It is exactly what you'd want a practice to look like. I mean, it's very well run. It's an outstanding practice. There's great tempo, and they try to create as game-like an atmosphere as they can create. And unfortunately, when you try to create that super physical practice that everyone's striving to create, there will be some practice attrition. And it's really unfortunate. With Jam Miller going down with the collarbone in the second scrimmage, brutal, right? Just a brutal injury, and I do think has had an impact on the team overall. With Tim Keenan going down with an ankle injury in practice, that's super unfortunate. And a guy that would have been so helpful to have against Florida State. If he's out there, do they win? I don't know. I have no idea. But it's unlucky that he was not. And your depth gets challenged, and it becomes very, very difficult. So I don't think there's a whole lot that you can put out on it. I just think that sometimes guys get banged up, and when you try to create a super physical practice, you're probably going to have some attrition. But I would rather have the physical practice so that my guys are ready to go on Saturday and risk potential injury in practice, even though it's still really unlikely, than I would have a bunch of walkthroughs where my guys aren't really that intense in the week leading up to the game. So it's a double-edged sword, and I'm not sure there's a right answer, but it's been very unfortunate and I think somewhat unlucky the last few weeks as a result of some of the guys that have been lost in the week leading up to the game. Where are we going next, Damian?
Somebody texted in and says, with Jam Miller back this weekend, will that change the game plan for Bama, or will Ty Simpson still throw it 30-plus times?
I think in a perfect world, you create great balance. I mean, in a perfect world, the run game's going. In a perfect world, and if you look back at last year's plan, a lot of it was perimeter run. A lot of it was kind of outside the tackles. A lot of it was attacking the alleys. A lot of it was attacking the edges. And granted, you had a super dynamic quarterback with the ball in his hands that could beat you to the edges. But guess what? Just because last year it was mostly Jalen Milroe getting out on the edge, you can marry it up now with bubble screens. Like one of the more successful plays they had last year was bubble screens off inside zone action, throw a bubble screen. So if they feel like they need to stop the run and that extra defender's getting in the box, boom, bubble screen. It's no different than triple option. With Jam Miller back in the game now, you got some juice in the passing game by way of the running back. Jam Miller can beat linebackers in one-on-one. Jam Miller can create mismatches in the passing game. Like he's a 3-down back. And I have a ton of respect for the guys that have filled in. And I think in some ways have filled in pretty admirably. Like Kevin Riley's emergence has been nice as a secondary piece. Daniel Hill, Richard Young, like those guys are downhill running backs. Like they're not going to be a guy that you want running halfback option. That's not who they are. But with Jam Miller, you better believe that the running back's involvement in the passing game will be a big part of this plan. I don't know how you could go into it and not think that that would be paramount to get those linebackers who play super downhill, who are great blitzers, who are great run stoppers, who are tremendous at rushing the quarterback. They're not as good in coverage. Guess what? No linebackers are. Like, I've yet to meet a linebacker that was a great cover guy. They're out there to stop the run and to rush the quarterback. They're not out there to cover guys. So I think you'll have a lot of formations this week where Jam Miller will start out an empty formation. You figure out who's covering him when you put him outside. If a linebacker's out there with him, guess what? You know it's man. Maybe you snap the ball at that point because you like your matchup between your running back and the linebacker in a one-on-one. If he's out there with a corner, guess what you can do? All right, check, alert, alert. Motion that running back into the backfield, and you run your best play to beat zone coverage. So you're going to have some, quote, indicator formations in this game plan as well. I'd be surprised if you didn't. So it's going to be a fascinating game. I'm going to give way now. I'm going to go catch a flight, try to get home. Going to go navigate the newly renovated Sheridan Bradley Airport connection to the Bradley International Airport here in Hartford. I tried to find the pre-check line, which I still have no idea where it was. I went down and scouted this morning. I got no scouting. Terrible. But we're going to figure it out, give way to Damian and Saber. I'll be back tomorrow. Cole will be back as well. And we'll continue to preview some of the biggest games of the weekend because, man, we have a lot of games to look forward to here in the Week 5 slate as conference play is starting to really get going, not just in the SEC, but in the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC as well. So I'll give way. Damian and Saber will take you home. They're next on Mac and Cube.
9:51 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian and John here with you to wrap things up on a Wednesday show. Appreciate head coach of UAB Blazers, Trent Dilfer, for hopping on his weekly segment. Of course, hours 1 and 2, all podcasted at JocksFM.com, the Jocks mobile app. Wherever you get your podcast, you can find it all there. We'll just continue with text messages rolling in, 205-834-9450. Wesley texts in and says, which home loss would concern you the most? Georgia to Alabama or Texas A&M to Auburn? Love the show, War Eagle. I'd probably say Georgia just because they don't usually lose at home. I mean, if you're Texas A&M, you've seen a lot more losses at home than you have Georgia in the span of 6 years since Georgia last lost at home. And was that South Carolina the last time Georgia lost at home when Jake Fromm threw like 3 or 4 picks? I think that
feels like it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
the most detrimental loss. I know that. Or was that an away game? I don't know.
I mean, Alabama got them the last time Alabama was an underdog, but even still, that was, I think that South Carolina game was more recent.
Yeah. But who knows? A lot of people texting in about the AP polls, trying to figure out, one, why Ole Miss is still ranked. I mean, not Ole Miss, Notre Dame is still ranked. Why did Auburn drop out? And then somebody brought up Illinois is lost by, 6,000 points, and they're still ranked, and Auburn's not. At this point with the AP poll, I think that lady that jumped on and kind of gave her spiel about how she does the voting, I just don't think we need to look too much into it until the college football playoff rankings are unveiled. Those are the ones that matter. I think right now it's just we don't, even through 4 weeks into the season as we approach week 5, we legitimately just don't know what these teams are because, again, everything that we had seen in the preseason, heard, felt about Clemson, they were looked at. I even had them as arguably my number 1 team coming into the season. And now you see, okay, yeah, this may not be a good football team. Maybe just a lot of people have always said that we shouldn't do rankings till about week 5, week 6 anyway. I think this kind of furthers that conversation because we legitimately just do not know at any point. Because, I mean, you can look at Alabama, Florida State, and now Florida State, you can tell like they are one of the better teams in college football. So as long as Florida State keeps winning and Alabama continues to win, that loss to start the season doesn't look as detrimental because it's, oh, yeah, that was a playoff team, and they came out the gate swinging, and Alabama came out, a little bit shocked. And to me, I agree with Greg on his sentiment about Alabama. It's you almost needed, and I hate saying this, but that loss is something that you probably wanted to see because all it did was spark a fire the rest of the way. And I think this weekend against Georgia will also show that as well. And I going back to the Georgia-Tennessee matchup, Tennessee jumps on them. It felt very similar to what it looked like with Alabama and Georgia last year, where Kirby's. I don't know if it's he feels as though his team has gotten to the point where they can kind of roll. They get off the bus and the other team is down 7-0. Like kind of how Alabama used to be when you can tell when they walk into the building, they're like, yep, okay, we're already facing the uphill battle. I don't think Georgia's that talented right now. So I think if Alabama jumps on them quickly, it could get out of hand just because of the talent that you have.
Probably, but a good number of those players got jumped on last year and found a way to battle back. And all of those players got jumped on by Tennessee and found a way to battle back on the road.
Yeah.
So I do think that you're mostly right in that, yeah, there's something about Alabama that for whatever reason Georgia just can't seem to topple, but this might be the year that I'm like, okay, you know what? Like we've seen the giant bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Xerxes is followable. Maybe we can do it.
Who knows, man? But I'm excited for this weekend. Of course, we have a bunch of games: Ole Miss and LSU, Mississippi State and Tennessee. Arkansas is taking on Notre Dame, and if you want to see Notre Dame get knocked out of the top 25, lose to Arkansas. But the best thing about Arkansas is you get them at home. And which Taylor Green do we get? Do we get the one that when he's on, he is absolutely cooking? And then when he's off, it's okay. Now we're back to normal.
Oh, by the way, USC Illinois.
Yeah. How does Illinois respond?
Right, yeah.
USC is kind of sitting back and looking at the Big Ten like, y'all must have forgotten about us. Y'all must have forgotten about us. And Lincoln Riley, he stayed below this attacking level. Like he's kind of looking around and nobody's talking about my offense. Nobody's talking about my defense actually looking a little bit better. Like, hey, okay, we're good. We'll look up and USC is ranked in the top 10 come week 8 and it's going to like, well, who'd they beat? It's just only gone through the Big Ten schedule, man. But that'll do it for Mac and Cube today. Of course, thank UAB head coach Trent Dilfer for hopping on with us. If you missed any of the show, you can go back, get it. Podcast, wherever you get your podcast, jocksfm.com, the Jocks mobile app. That way you can take us wherever you go. 3-man front, full crew coming up right after this from 10 to 2. Keep it locked on Jocks.